Well, two of the year's most anticipated films come out this week. Wicked, the musical starring Cynthia Erivo and Ariana Grande, and Gladiator 2, a historical drama starring Paul Mescal, Pedro Pascal, and Denzel Washington. Metro Morning's film columnist Jason Gorber is here to talk about the movie weekend he's dubbed Glicked. I called it Wickiator.
Yeah, we need something, a new word for all of this. But look, we got two films that are colliding into each other, and what's not to love? And remember when this used to always happen? When every weekend you'd have this incredible choice, and then Hollywood decided that the best way to do all of this stuff was to simply, make it so that you had one choice at the movie theater this weekend. Well, now you have two choices, and I recommend seeing both of them.
Does Wicked live up to the hype?
It does. I think it's extraordinary. I think it's a fantastic adaptation of the musical. I am going to warn people who aren't aware, if you've been sort of under a house that has fallen on you when it came from Kansas, that it is part one of a two-part. In other words, it's the first half of the musical. The most famous song from this musical is Defying Gravity. Defying Gravity comes at the act break at the end of Act 1, and the filmmakers very, very smartly decided that would be ridiculous to have halfway through a movie. It is 2.5 hours of just part one. But what that allows the musical to do is to not only extend some of these moments, but also to incorporate so much stuff from the original book, the book that was not the theatrical book, but the actual novel that it was based on, which includes, it lays the foundation for what's to come in part two, which comes out in a year. Part two will have new songs written, but an extension of some of the, let's say, darker, more political elements that are actually in the original novel. I think this is a fantastic adaptation. I have some caveats on it because I'm a very particular fan of this musical. But I think even for those that have never heard a note, they're going to get in something really special for this big, spectacular extravaganza of a musical that still plays extremely, extremely well to contemporary audiences.
It's always a toss-up, right? Because if you've seen the musical on stage, you always wonder, how can they capture that energy on film? Are they able to do that?
Oh, absolutely. So that's one of the big things. It's like when you have the big canvas of cinema, you really want to make sure that they can actually translate it, and they absolutely do. Now, again, I can nitpick. I can say that some of the orchestration, which gets bigger, doesn't necessarily get better. The choreography is stellar, the giant sets. There's a lot of computer graphics to bring some things to life, so there's a certain charm about seeing it on stage. But when you have the much larger sweep and scope of the film, it does much better, but it allows the performances to sort of live within the world. And lest we forget, a lot of people, obviously Frank L. Baum's book was, popular, to use a word, back in the day. Actually, The Wizard of Oz that we think of, the Judy Garland version, was by no means the first iteration of Wizard of Oz. I always use it, and Maltese Falcon actually, as an example of people like, all Hollywood does is do remakes. I think Wizard of Oz was like the fourth one they ever did. Just that's the one that became canonized because it was so integral not only to our enjoyment. At the time it came out, it was relatively well received, but it's actually through television that this original film, over years and years and years and years, playing for generations, became absolutely foundational to our culture. And now we have this meta thing, this thing that happens all the time now, where we learn what the bad guy's backstory was, or bad girl in this case, backstory was. And this film very much does that. You have superstars like Cynthia Erivo and Ariana Grande, but I have to give out a shout out to Jonathan Bailey as Fiyero, which is a relatively underwritten character at the best of times. But Jonathan Bailey, I guess he's in Bridgerton. I don't watch TV.
He is in Bridgerton. He is a big part of Bridgerton.
What I'm saying is he is so seductive and amazing and an incredible voice. And whoever you are and wherever you're coming from, you fall in love with him. There's so much here to absolutely enjoy. If you're a huge fan of the film, skeptical about what they did, just go in and enjoy the retelling. And if you've never seen it before and you're completely skeptical about musicals, just revel in the nonsense of it all, but also in the beauty and the power of its story, which plays very well right now.
So let's shift over to Gladiator 2, because this is the sequel to Ridley Scott's original from, 24 years ago.
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
What about this new film that sort of makes it compelling?
Here's a hot take. I hate Gladiator. I actually hate Gladiator.
Oh, really?
I hated it when I saw it in theaters. It won Best Picture. Not a fan. Think Joaquin Phoenix is a mess. Think Russell Crowe is just two-dimensional. Not my favorite film. So I went and I rewatched it. I'm like, am I wrong about this? No, I saw it as just not a big fan. I love Ridley Scott when it works and don't love him when he doesn't work. So this second one, I went in skeptically, and I love Gladiator 2. And I am absolutely a minority in some ways about this. So I'm putting my cards on the table here. My sword's on the sand. I don't know what we're doing with this. But if the first film was written by the guy who's so self-serious, it's the guy who wrote Amistad, the terrible Spielberg film. This one is written in part by the guy who did Maverick, right? So this is written, Top Gun Maverick. This is written by people who know, let's have fun with this. Let's be a little bit silly. Let's recognize how big and preposterous this kind of telling, this sort of sword and sandals epic. They eat as Tartar the head of a rhinoceros on the film to show how ostentatious Rome is. There's a scene where they flood the Colosseum and sharks are battling gladiators. There's saltwater sharks.
Oh my gosh.
And you're watching this like, how did we get here? And yet the jewel. Look, Pedro Pascal's great. Paul Mescal's fine. You have some people like Connie Nielsen coming back. Denzel Washington. If we are to have a historical legend, something as much of a masterpiece as the Colosseum itself, Denzel Washington is milking every frame of this movie. He is having the greatest time and just crushing it. And so if all you want to do is sit in a theater and watch a whole bunch of spectacle and watch one of the greatest actors that will ever be, just have fun. This is Gladiator 2. I really, really recommend it for those. If you're a fan of the first film, you're probably going to like the second film. But if you really didn't like the first film, go see Gladiator 2. What a great double bill both of these films are.
Jason, as always, I appreciate it.
All the best. Take care.
Jason Gorber is Metro Morning's film columnist and editor-in-chief of ThatShelf.com.
ThatShelf.